Five, four, three.
Good evening, and welcome to the Reel McCoy. I'm your host, Meffistoe, and usually with me, my hetero life mate, or my feelings is here, but is away on personal matters. So we will continue. What is the Reel McCoy, you might ask? The Reel McCoy is your weekly movie podcast where we ask you to go and watch a movie. You watch it, come back to us, and we break it down and we spin it all around. This October month, we are focusing on horror films, but not just horror films. The wacky, the tacky, and the campy, and especially this movie, Seed of Chucky. To talk to us about it is Tom from Midnight's Edge. How are you doing, sir?
Oh yeah, this movie is pure camp almost. Seed of Chucky is a interesting film. How you been?
I'm doing okay. IRL stuff is out of fucking control, but hold. See, it could go off any minute. Like I can starting to hear the I'm starting to hear like echoes of, oh, you should go down to your bomb shelters kind of alarms. Yeah, it might happen throughout the
Oh
show.
well, yeah.
And
If
not
that happens and you got to
throughout.
end the stream, then end
No,
the stream.
no. What happens is if there's an alarm, I will just run away, and you can log off. I won't have time to shut down the
Oh, you
stream.
don't want me hijacking your stream, man. I
No,
could
no,
get you
no.
kicked off of
You
YouTube.
do you. You can just
Oh, that's the worst
leave.
thing you can say.
Fine. I'll leave it in your capable hands. What can go wrong?
Everything, sir. Everything will go wrong because I say all kinds of crap and worse.
Well, I'm already demonetized. What can
Oh
go
Lord,
wrong?
that's because I'm here. I guarantee you.
No. We're already demonetized regardless. Anyway, we'll say how to chat. Hey, how you doing, Jay? Nice of you to come over. You did say you might want to not jump into the show, but jump into the chat and have a laugh with this crazy, wacky movie. All right. First time for me watching Seed of Chucky. It was very interesting, I must say. And going through like research and trying to find out some more material for this movie, it's a bit of a doozy. It's the fifth iteration or the fifth chapter in the entire franchise, not the last one. All of them were written by Don
It
Mancini.
was the last theatrical. I guess that would be poignant.
Last, so Curse of Chucky wasn't released theatrically;
No,
it was only straight to
no,
video.
straight to video.
And all of them were involved Don Mancini, but this one is very special because in this one they actually did give him the reins, like full
Yeah,
reins. It's like, okay,
I think he directs everything from here on out, pretty much. Yeah.
yeah, you've got all the stuff. Just go. And well, actually, we'll start with our first segment of the night. It's called Behind the Screens.
Action take two.
And we welcome DK to the chat as well. So behind the screens is where we usually turn to all my feelings, get the lowdown on everything behind the scenes, behind the production stuff. But I do have my notes, and I will have Tom to help me out. So the script was originally offered to Universal in 1998, but it was turned down. Uh, uh, Focus Features, which is a division of Universal Studios. I don't know if
Right.
there still are. They picked it up in 2003. The original title was Son of Chucky, but that was not the only title. The film was released by Rogue Pictures. Again, I think it's a publisher under the Universal umbrella. Still is, I believe, Tom?
Yeah, it was like the Rogue was like a company. I don't know if it started by Universal or if they just picked them up. I can't remember, but yeah, they were like a more straight to video B-level movie kind of company. Not everything was straight to video, but yeah, they handled kind of like Dimension was over at Miramax.
Yeah, it's sort of we want to make this, so we don't want to lose our rights over this script or over this creator. We'll just dump it all on whatever straight to video kind of production company, and if it makes money, good, and if it's not,
Seed also had like the least of all the budgets, if I remember right, as far as with inflation, if you figure it. 'Cause I think they spent the same amount as Bride, if I'm not mistaken.
I didn't check, but this one was 12 million. Let
Actually, they might have spent more on Bride, I think.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Let's greet to the show first time arrival, Fanscene. How you
Hey,
doing,
Greg.
sir?
Doing
Welcome.
good. How you guys doing?
Let's make the introductions because we never talked. How Fanscene?
Yes.
You've been working with Tom on the 4K shows.
Yes. On 4K for you on Midnight's Edge After Dark. Yeah.
Yeah, and you have your own channel. Please
Yeah.
share with
It's
us.
called Fancy Vids.
And what do you do on the channel?
What I do physical media, horror, sci-fi, 80s, 90s, stuff like that.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
I used to do a lot of things, but now I'm more concentrated on movie reviews, or from this October on at least. But this show, the Reel McCoy podcast, where we ask our people to go and watch a movie, and then we'll just endlessly talk about it for a little bit, for about a couple of hours. When's the last time did you watch Seed of Chucky?
It's probably been a few years, but I can vaguely, mostly remember it. I remember, to be honest with you, never been my favorite, but I've always had a little bit of fun with it, so it's good.
All right, we're talking about everything that is behind the scenes right now, so let's continue. So in 2001, Don Mancini wrote sort of an alternative script because the 1998 one, or the draft, was rejected by Universal. In the first kind of draft, the title was Chucky Goes Psycho, and then the entire movie, what happens is we come back to Chucky and Tiffany from escaping the cemetery from the last movie, and evidently, in some sort of a way, Tiffany gets mowed down by these teenagers. And what Chucky was supposed to happen is to be the surrogate kind of killer, sort of like I Know What You Did Last Summer, but with Chucky as the killer. And it would have been a much more of a slasher type movie. but of course it got rejected. And when Rogue Studios or the other company, Focus Features, kind of picked it up, they were like, we need a new thing. We want you to do your own thing. We don't want any sort of like teen copies. We don't want another Scream. We don't want another, I know what you did last summer. Give us something new. Give us something fresh. So you give them a fresh idea. All right. So oddly enough, the fifth movie, which is this one, and the fifth movie in Nightmare on Elm Street, both deal with the villain trying to impose a surrogate son. In Nightmare on Elm Street, it's a daughter, but a surrogate continuation to continue to wreak havoc on the population. That's kind of an interesting one. The role of Pete Peters was written specifically for John Waters because evidently he was a fan of Child's Play, but there are other ties as well, especially because Don Mancini is openly gay. And kind of the story written for John Waters is the fact that he's playing a photographer, kind of mirroring the movie he did with Pecker in 1998. And his death was involving like an acid thrown in his face, which is kind of like the movie Female Trouble that John Waters did, where the female character got splashed with acid, but she survived and he died just because it's sort of a slasher movie, but not really. Chris Sarandon was approached to come back to do the Detective Mike Norris from the first movie. He turned it down just because of scheduling conflict, not because he really, really didn't want to dip his toes in this bitch. As I mentioned, Don Mancini is openly gay, and he wrote the whole Glenn and Glenda situation to reflect his sort of coming out. And the Glenn and Glenda thing is derived from an old Ed Wood movie where Ed Wood himself played the cross-dresser in the movie, and it was called Glenn or Glenda from 1953. There's a small homage to The Shining. I don't remember if they did that in other movies though, where he hacks through the door.
No, this is the first time you really kind of get some of the. I mean, they did well. That's not totally true. They did kind of poke a little bit in Bride of Chucky, but this one's really on the nose, especially when he hacks the door and he's like, "I can't think of a thing to say." The
Yeah.
whole thing was just yeah.
Well,
This one's very tongue in cheek, very campy. It took because you got to remember this coming off of Bride of Chucky, which was the most successful at that time of all the films. I think it even grossed more than the original with inflation.
Yeah.
They really wanted to kind of go a little bit more into that comedy route. And I wish it would have been called Son of Chucky because it really goes with the whole Bride of Chucky, Son of Chucky, the
Yep.
whole Universal Monster Classics kind of thing. And there was a little bit of, they were leaning into that in Bride of Chucky, especially, which is a fan favorite of sorts. And I can see why people are disappointed by this one, especially because it's the follow-up to that. But what they did is they leaned a lot more into the camp, a lot more into the goofy. Like Chucky has this great rant where he talks about, being Chucky, the serial killer, and he digs it,
Yeah.
and why would he want to be anything else? And, and also the film just before this, Mancini, when he took over kind of a little bit more control, he kind of tried to throw out some of the voodoo stuff, which was also something he really hated from the initial changes that Tom Holland had made on the initial film and stuff like that. But
Yeah, I had it written down, not as a behind the scenes note, but I picked it up and I wanted to ask you. But we'll finish up with NPAA wanted to rate this as NC-17 because of both nudity and gore, but because they didn't want to have that tagline as NC-17,
which is weird because there's not all that much nudity anyway. But
Yeah,
yeah,
there's really not, is there?
I know. And it was
I think it was the artificial insemination scene that probably really set him off.
really.
And not only that, the other scene that's like, because if you watch the unrated version, there's only 2 bits that are added to it, and they don't seem like things that the MPAA necessarily would have went after as much as some of the other stuff. So they maybe just made compromises, because the only difference between the unrated version and the regular version is you get to see Chucky jerking off a little bit longer, an actual like close-up shot. And then at the end, you actually see Jennifer Tilly / Tiffany cleaning up her mess, and Glenda watching as she's killing and cleaning up the mess of the nanny. That's the only bits that are added. And they don't seem like they're all that unrated to me. So I don't understand why there ever was that problem. Because if the unrated version that was on video, clearly they didn't add back in anything that probably got them an NC-17 that I could tell.
Yeah, I didn't see anything that was
and they couldn't say much about the opening scene because it's a clear take on Look Who's Talking, right? Like if anybody's seen the opening of Look Who's Talking, that's clearly what they're homaging with that. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk about that, but it says here that it was actually released to the theaters unrated, sort of like in Evil Dead 2, that they didn't want the NC-17 and they couldn't get the R, so they just released it unrated. Or like originally they released it unrated. We talked about
no, I got it rated R here, but
no, it's at the moment it's rated R. I checked it, but on release apparently it was released unrated.
Interesting.
Unless that was just in certain areas, because like I don't know. Yeah, as far as I know, it was rated R when it got released. But
all right.
I don't know.
One little tidbit is Brad Dourif and Billy Boyd haven't actually met and been in the same room, but they both played on opposite sides of Lord of the Rings.
Right.
Two Towers. That's basically the only connections. There are other connections that people made, but it's sort of like it's like 6 degrees of separation from Kevin Bacon kind of a deal, but. Otherwise, that's all I got. The rest of it is through the movie.
Yeah. I mean, as far as making of, the only thing I can think of otherwise that probably is different is this is the first time that oh gosh, and I just forgot his name because he even married Catherine Hicks. Did the special effects for the first 4 movies.
Well, I know that the prop guy who gets basically killed.
That's the guy in the movie now who does all the special effects. Yeah. Kevin Yeager no longer does the special effects in this one. It's Tony Gardner, who was one of Yeager's people for years. So yeah, he took over and has still to this day done all the special effects. So yeah.
So
yes, he's in the movie and he gets his head cut off. Yes.
He's not the actual guy because it's implied that he is. Implied, sorry.
Yeah, he's Tony Gardner plays that role in the movie too. Like he plays the guy that gets his head cut off by 2 of them or whatever with whatever, not the piano wire, but what kind of wire was it? I don't remember, but
whatever. That one of the wires for the dolls, I think.
Yeah, that's the guy who does all the Chucky effects now. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I need to put it there. So the movie kind of starts with that whole scene. What I'm gonna actually have to bring it back. This whole sort of like, oh, here we go. This
Look
is
who's talking. Yeah,
talking, and we have a baby insemination scene and a baby scene now. And I'm not sure in the Bride of Chucky they don't actually show them fucking.
Oh yeah, they do.
Oh, they do.
Yeah, because they had the whole
long time.
Hey, like, Chucky, do you have a rubber? He's like, rubber, Tiff. I'm all rubber. Oh yeah.
I remember that.
And that was the only part of Seed or Bride of Chucky I didn't really care for was the very, 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 very end where she's sitting there screaming and I'm like, she's not going to end up having a baby right away, is she? And sure as shit, here comes a little Chucky baby out of her. And I'm like, that was the only part that kind of let me down to that movie. But they followed up with it. So I'm like, all right, I'm willing to give them a shot to see where they're going with this. So yeah.
Yeah, and it kind of continues on with this scene. This is the safest I can go, but this is the
psycho scene. Yeah,
the only actually scene that has actual nudity in it is this one, and this was like his version of how I can do a better version of Psycho, which is fine, but it looks kind of goofy and stupid. The only thing good in it is the fact that you can see the girl being naked, semi.
I'm all for boobs, man. All for
Yeah,
boobs.
I'm all for boobs too.
You're
Like-
pissing your pants. You're pissing your pants.
And that's the one thing in the movie that was kind of like, oh, this is weird. Why is he? It's a doll.
Well,
it has no penis or vagina, and yet he pisses his pants.
Yeah, it's kind of weird how this is where, like, I love Don Mancini, but this is, like I said, where the whole franchise kind of goes into camp territory. They bring it back a little bit with Curse of Chucky, but then it heads right back down this road again. I don't know if you guys have watched the series at all. I didn't mind the first season, but the second season was really bad, and the second season is really, really indicative of what Seed of Chucky is. It's very much in the same tone of that. Only amped up in some ways. And again, so like if you are not a fan of Seed of Chucky, I can't recommend the series, but yeah, this is where the franchise takes a bit of a weirder turn than it ever has before, for better or worse.
Evidently
Yeah.
enough, from what I've read for Don Mancini, every single time that they went out and did one of these movies, especially the first three, he always wanted to go a little bit more camp with it. And the studios were like, no. We're gonna stick to the stuff, because you mentioned it before. He didn't like the whole voodoo stuff. You were not a guest when we did Child's Play, and I don't think we actually mentioned it. But Don Mancini didn't want people to know the origins of Chucky. He was quite opposed to.
I wish I had, because
to the Brad Dourif kind of going in and doing the whole voodoo.
there was an origin, but it wasn't that, right? The original story, and this is where it all, to keep it as succinct as possible, the initial idea came out in the mid 80s when Don was in college. His dad used to work for an advertising agency for toy companies, and he had heard the term consumer trainee, and he actually uses that term in Child's Play 3, I think it is, because he specifically said this was in the height of the Cabbage Patch craze, and he kind of noticed this change in how they were kind of treating the toy industry almost like the alcohol or cigarette industry in a way.
Have you seen the new Five Nights at Freddy's?
Not yet.
There's a homage for that there.
Okay. Well, anyway, so that, like, the initial idea,
very interesting that you bring that up.
Really, really transformed over the course of a couple of years. But as it started, and then the initial story was called Blood Buddies. Chucky was actually named Buddy, and what it was you bought the doll, but it had all these other accessories that you were supposed to buy with it. So that's where the hammer and all that kind of stuff came in the story. Some of that stuff's still there, but it was more prevalent in the original script, because you also had to buy Band-Aids, because that was the whole idea, is if you played too hard with Buddy, he could bleed. So you had to buy these Band-Aids. Well, Andy gets this idea to make a blood pact with Buddy, even though, the doll's not like alive yet. But what happens in that, when they do the blood transfusion, because, he cuts himself, and, they do the little, finger thing that kids do when they're younger to make a blood pact.
Yeah.
And in that moment, his id takes over Buddy. And the first thing he does is kill the babysitter. He kills the dentist, and he kills a teacher, and all this other stuff. So it's Andy's id acting out through Buddy the things that he doesn't like, because he's told to go to bed early by his babysitter, so he kills her.
And Don Mancini said that he wanted you to know throughout the movie, he wanted to have you confused if it's Andy doing the killing.
Yes, more so in the original, yeah.
Or like it.
And if I remember right, like in the original version, you don't even see Buddy until the third act of the movie, right? Like that's that moment where she threatens to throw him in the fire happens way later in the original story. But it morphed, and Tom Holland came in, and he added the Charles Lee Ray business. He added the voodoo. He's like gave Chucky a background. Of course, they had to change the name Chucky because of Buddy, my Buddy doll, came to the market. And they're like, well, crap. And that completely changed, because the original title was Blood Buddies. Like, so that's why it went into that whole idea of it. And then when that went out the window, they changed it to Batteries Not Included. Well, guess what happened to that title?
I mean, you should say that.
Which would have been a brilliant title, right? Like,
right, it's perfect.
Because literally, when the moment of realization, it's the moment with the batteries. That's in the original movie, and that's kind of coming to this where you're looking at Don Mancini and he grew up and he came. I don't know if it's because he came out or whatever, but he puts different a lot of different campy things that you wouldn't expect to be in a horror movie. And I was kind of, to me, I was kind of disappointed because I didn't expect it to be a super gory, super, slasher movie, but it ended up being way over the top camp. Cause started, it started like a Chucky movie with an added son, but then cut to the Hollywood setting, and you were like, "Oh, what the hell is going on here?" And
Well,
that's where I
in the
started to lose it.
in the Glenn and Glenda bit, that's the thing. Is the funny thing, and I remember when this movie came out, like you would think that the bigger controversy would be the Glenn and Glenda part of it all.
Yeah,
When actuality, the big controversy around this movie was the Britney Spears scene. Most people don't realize this, but go and look at all the trailers they had to put at the end of the trailers and it's at the end of the movie, I believe too, that Britney Spears had nothing to do with this movie because they threatened to sue over
really.
that shit. Yes, that's what kind of permeated over this movie. So I'm sure at the time Don made this, he's like, I'm going to get everybody talking because this is going to be one of the most tongue-in-cheek. And you got to remember, at this time period, it was still a little risque. I mean, sure, there was tons of gay entertainment out there, but to bring that kind of aspect into a mainstream horror film kind of thing was a little bit taboo yet. Sure, Clive Barker had kind of opened up the doors to a little bit more psychosexual activity in movies and a bit of homoeroticness and all that kind of stuff. And there's always been a little bit of the,
Especially
you
after,
know,
like, this is early 2000s. Most of the stuff
exactly, yeah.
you had
This is 20 years ago now. You got to keep that in mind. Yeah.
you had at the time, remember, you had gay dedicated shows. Like, I'm not sure if the L Word.
This is when Ellen had just probably
Ellen-
come out.
Alan was already coming out. It was a lot more accepted.
Yes.
And a lot of these stories were either tongue in cheek or actually touch the subject, but it's sort of a part of the story.
But my point was, I think
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, I think Mancini was thinking that was going to be the talking points of the film, and what ended up happening was everybody was just paying attention to the stupid Britney Spears controversy.
Yeah.
Because people got to remember how big she was at that point too. This was at her height. Like,
Yeah.
She was
huge.
huge.
She was pure toxic at that point.
Yeah. It was really huge. Anything to add?
Sorry, I didn't mean to derail that, but that was kind of all I remember about the Seed of
That's the whole
Chucky coming
thing.
out. And
That's
I
the
remember
whole
seeing it in an empty theater. That was the other sad part. Because Bride of Chucky had like a Chuck full theater. Seed of Chucky, it was like nobody else but me.
Yeah. I just couldn't get into Seed of Chucky. Not that it doesn't have its moments, but it's just something that, like you said, there with the campiness, which I'm all fine for camp, but it kind of just gets overboard. But I do love the John Waters cameo and stuff. I think that's pretty cool. But I don't know. It just didn't resonate with me like the last one because I was like, oh man, Bride of Chucky was awesome. And I can't wait for this. And like Tom said, I was digging the whole Universal Monster type vibe they had. And then when it got to Seed, I was just like, what is this? This isn't what I signed up for. So
Yeah. All right. We're going to do a momentary stop here. We've got fan scenes here, and we're going to play our first game of the night. It is called Missing Marquee. Missing Marquee is where we take 10 posters of movies, have their text written off, we display them, and our guests will have to guess which movie this is. Tom will sit in the bleachers for this one and will be called upon as needed. Chat participation is most welcome. Fan scenes, this is all you, baby.
all right. As
That's
good as it
an
gets.
easy one.
Yeah,
Yes.
as good as it gets.
Good as it
A
gets.
battery's
Speaking
not
of-
included. Battery's
Wow,
not
that's
included.
irony.
Now you see why I laughed so hard.
What is this? Battlefield Earth. Yeah.
Battlefield Earth is correct.
Blood Diamond.
Blood Diamond, correct.
Deja Vu.
Damn.
Deja Vu,
Ghost Rider.
correct.
Gone in 60 Seconds.
Correct.
Hard Target.
Correct.
The English Patient.
This guy
You,
could kick my
sir,
ass, maybe.
are a sir and a scholar. That was quick and
This is
easy.
why Greg, he got to watch out for him.
I didn't,
Seen too many movies.
dude. Around here, it's all good. It's all gravy, baby. Yeah, I do enjoy people kind of going. Oh, I had an extra one. I'll pull it up. I had an extra one. I need to set this up again. Okay. One last one. There we go. This might tickle your fancy. I don't know. Here we go. That's the last one I got.
This is James. Now you've got me because I have not seen a lot of James Bond movies, so I'm not sure which one this is.
Right.
That's definitely Sean Connery.
That's
So
Sean
Yeah.
Connery.
you only.
It's not. Go ahead.
I would say, is it Only You Live Twice? No, that's not
You
the one.
only live twice.
Is it? Okay.
Yes, it
Oh,
is.
there you go.
It
I was
was-
going to guess that.
It was.
I was trying to remember which one was the helicopters, but yeah.
It was basically one of the most famous ones. First of all, it had one of the most iconic sort of themes to it because it's the do 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 do,
Right.
which was taken by Robbie Williams to do Millennium later on. But also, it had the sort of half famous stuff that they took for Austin Powers, where the base was in a volcano that kind of gets closed down. And also the Blofeld kind of gray suit. I think it was the first time you saw sort of Blofeld with the gray suit and the white cat. I think that's the first one that they did it on, if I'm not mistaken. Plus,
It's actually of all the Bond films, it's my favorite one. But anyway, sorry.
It's up there with one of my favorites. Goldfinger is mine, just because who throws a hat? Exactly. No, but it was sort of so iconic and super racist, but I don't really care because they hid Bond in this Japanese place and they cut him up and they did his eyebrows as if he was Japanese, sort of like Mickey Rooney style, but not all the way through. All right.
That you got me there. I've not seen a lot of James Bond's movies, so
that's my
on
weak
me.
point too. That's one of my weak
all
points.
of them. Except for most of the Daniel Craig ones, I don't care. I hate Daniel Craig as Bond. I just don't like it. I mean, to be absolutely fair, Casino Royale is a good movie. I just don't like Daniel Craig in it. If it was somebody else, I wouldn't even mind.
He's not who comes to my mind when I think of Bond. That's for sure. Yeah.
I was always a Clive Owen guy when it comes to Bond, but it's too late now. Anyway, so we get to see the Seed of Chucky. We get to see Glinda, or Shitface as they call him originally, and he kind of watches a newscast, and the newscast comes right after this kind of scene where you see Santa basically and it threw me off because I know the actor. The actor is like an English actor, and like the English actor that was here, I don't remember his name. After he did the shoot, he's like, why did I go to Romania to do this movie? This movie is such a bad move on my part. That's what he said. And he had such a minute role in it. It was just one of the bodies that was supposed to be a body, but because it's a sort of a meta movie within a movie kind of deal, he is not really actually killed. But you had a whole scene where Chucky and Tiffany kill this guy. And after he's covered with blood because the puppeteering actually made a mistake, or it got stuck in a loop, he's getting up. I didn't need this, blah, 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 mirroring what he actually felt about the movie, like the Seed of Chucky movie. Is about there. That's I guess it's YouTube safe. I guess. Well, we'll not dawdle on the fake corn syrup.
Yeah.
And then we get sort of like to the Jennifer Tilly role, where Jennifer Tilly not only she plays both Tiffany and Jennifer Tilly, she plays an exaggerated, super hyped up version of Jennifer Tilly,
Yeah.
or she basically plays herself.
And this is kind of where it gets into a little inside baseball and this is where I can see where it loses some of the audience too, because yes, a lot of people know who Jennifer Tilly is, but not that many people. And you're kind of doing this weird new nightmare twist on this business, where it's
Yeah,
kind of you just said where you have the real Jennifer Tilly playing a version of herself plus Tiffany, and it really starts to get very convoluted in in that respect. But I guess it works. And then there's the Red Man role that makes very little sense. It feels to
Oh
me, and
yeah.
I don't know if you guys agree with this or not. I have not found anything to support it or detract from it either way. It feels to me like that part was written for Quentin Tarantino and he turned it down.
from what I have, it was written for John Pantoliano.
Okay, somebody like that I could see, but yeah,
And
because he's also a friend of Mancini's because he pops up in the series. I can see that.
The thing is this: the whole point in this is not only to do some sort of angle on the whole Glenn Glenda thing. One of the criticism, if I could take this as a criticism on Hollywood in terms of what Mancini wrote in the script or subtly wrote in the script, is to basically show you how the cookie is made in Hollywood, and again, not the cookie that you eat and get high on. It's
Or the sausage, as we like to
you
call
know,
it, yeah.
how do they make the sausage?
And actually, that's one area where this movie has definitely aged better, is where like we look at it now and we know how full of crap Hollywood is. And this movie really does shine a light on a lot of that stuff. And especially how Jennifer gets the role. I mean,
because I think it's sort of like a reverse Harvey Weinstein.
yeah,
Or
there's a lot of that in there.
Yeah.
like it's very much like, yeah, to get the role, you have to sleep with the producer or director. It's sort of like, we know and you're whoring yourself out for roles. Well, how many actresses actually did whore themselves out for roles? Well, it turns out quite a bit. It was always
Well, and that's where
and always there was a book written by a Hollywood hooker. I think it's called "You'll Never Work in This Town Again."
yeah, I think I know what you're talking about.
And I think it's
Wasn't that Clyde?
it's
What's
yeah,
his
it's
name?
about, Clark Gable. Basically, it's tongue in cheek, but everybody knew it was Clark Gable. Kind of like, if you wanted to get good parts back in the day, you didn't have to go to the director or the studio. You had to go through Clark Gable because he had a lot of pull in certain offices. Did he work with MGM at the time or all the studios? I don't remember. But anyway, he had pull with certain producers and certain studios, so you had to go through him, and basically nothing has changed since then. Everything is just implied. And
Well, I mean, it just feels like in the movie itself, like the way like Redman has never been a director. I guess it works for the movie itself because he's supposed to be like this first time director making this very controversial movie. But the way Jennifer throws herself at him just kind of doesn't make any sense to me because I'm just like, wouldn't you rather have somebody who's an actual director, or if like you have like a Joe Pantoliano playing like a Tarantino type, that would make more sense? Because that's where I pictured it, is like, okay, who's the kind of director like is the last person that you would want making a movie like that? Because it's clearly a tongue-in-cheek play on when Scorsese made Last Temptation of Christ. Let's be real. That's what it's mocking.
yeah, that's what it's mocking. And to me, it was so funny because Redman now is super based and red pilled and all that shit.
Yeah.
He's like, wasn't he thrown from a TV show or something because he didn't want to get the jab?
I think, was it him? I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it was him or not, but
him or was some other member of the Wu-Tang Clan, somebody. And I think it's him. They just literally threw him out from one of those black
I didn't even know
TV shows.
Because when I think of him, I think of How High in this movie. That's like the only two things I think I remember seeing him in.
Yeah.
So he's like, was in a TV show and they threw him out. I think it's him. Pretty sure it's him. And he's a very staunch and we'll call it an anti-vaxxer, but he's like, I don't trust it, so I'm not gonna take it kind of a guy. And that whole thing, we're not gonna touch it, but him in that role back in the day, and it was like, that's interesting. He's kind of venerating sort of Mel Gibson and that sort of thing. It's like, that's kind of prophetic in a way, unintentionally prophetic.
I couldn't buy him as the director, to be honest with you. Like Tom was saying, it just doesn't feel right. He feels out of place in the whole movie compared to everything else.
To me, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was like, oh, it's
nothing against him. I like him.
No,
and like how high and that kind of stuff. Just here, it feels like, what are you trying to? Because that's what I said. It would have made more sense, even if you had Joe Pantoliano as like a Tarantino-esque or a Scorsese-esque director. Then it would make sense. See, that's where I see it makes sense now. They were trying to make him like a Scorsese type is what they were trying to do. And it would make more sense that it's more sleazy for her to throw herself at somebody like Joey than it would be at Redman. Because that's the thing, she's like, what, 10 years older than Redman probably in real life?
I think it was I don't know, an unintentional diversity hire. Let's give
I don't know about that. I think it was just a matter of they just couldn't get Joey because he couldn't get him casted. I believe that story. I agree. I think that's possibly the case. And then this was just the next best thing that came along, probably. Because I don't understand it otherwise.
And of course, because Shitface watches that TV newscast, watches the whole interview or the fake interview with that reporter, and he sees the Made in Japan kind of dipped into the to Chucky. He's like, oh, these are probably my
which
parents.
Has never been anything before, which that kind of bothered me too.
Yeah.
I didn't
How about the fact that you just see these two living dolls and you're like, I'm kind of like that. That's enough, I think, for this kid to go, maybe that's my parents, like.
So he mails himself and actually does get to the actual set. I don't know how he did that, but okay.
That's actually paying homage to shit Chucky does all the time. That's a common thing in all the films. He's always mailing himself somewhere. He does it a lot in the new series.
And he kind of finds the amulet, or he has the amulet. I didn't quite get it. I think he had it.
I think he still has it, yes. Because he was found that night by the police or whatever, and then I can't remember what they say, because I just watched this not that long ago.
It's in Bride, right? He gets it in Bride. If I'm not
well,
mistaken.
they don't really show that, because at the end it just shows him leaping out of Tiffany and biting at the cop.
Oh,
and they don't really specify if he's alive or dead. It just jumps X amount of years later. Yeah.
So he uses the amulet and they get up and immediately they're like, let's kill a guy. Because the prop master comes in, as we said, and they just kill him with a freaking cable string. Because he was, it basically starts with him trying to fix Tiffany because they're both malfunctioning. So he starts to open up her gears and everything. And Chucky's like, this ain't it. And once the opportunity comes, he just gets decapitated. I like the fact that they stroll over like buckets. Like, oh, this is stage blood. Like 10 gallons of stage blood. Not a big deal. So everything is fake. And then when he does get killed and Jennifer Tilly finds his body, she's like, oh, look, it's a prop head, which it technically is a prop head. But then she realized that, oh, this is a dead body. Cut to TMZ and all the other media outside. It was like, what happened, Jennifer? Did you kill him? Did you kill him, Jennifer? And all that shit. And of course, the dysfunctional family that has reunited. And first, this I didn't get. And this is like a convoluted story thing that they wrote in. So Jennifer Tilly sits in the front with her /boyfriend /simp of a driver that drives her around. She doesn't sit in the back, which kind of uniquely puts all the family in the back where Chucky's chugging champagne and shit face is just sitting there. And Tiffany's like, oh, I've arrived in Hollywood. It's my time to shine and all that stuff. And of course, it leads on to this scene. I want to get there. This is where the whole Glenn and Glenda kind of start, where Tiffany and Chucky are bickering. Is it a girl? Is it a boy? And Chucky's like, no, he's a boy. He's my boy. And Tiffany's like, no, it's a girl. Like I said, a dysfunctional family would argue. What would you have us have, like a boy or a girl? That's the whole you remember the like gender reveal parties and shit that I fucking hate. It bothers me so much. It doesn't matter to nothing.
Well, what's weird is this kind of predates the whole thing we're in the middle of now, and at the same time, it also does it better than any of these current woke movies could have. And in fact, this is one of the reasons why I dislike the second season of the Child's Play or Chucky series, because they kind of nerf Glenn and Glenda. And because at the end of this movie, you have one that's a boy, one that's a girl, right? And it turns out the girl is the psycho, even though Chucky wanted the boy and Tiffany wanted to, that's the irony of it. They could have played on that so much even further down the road, because in the new version, they have either, I can't remember if it's twins or the same actress playing both roles. And it's like, why didn't you have, I would say, why didn't you have a trans person play Glenn and a trans person play Glenda? Like, that would have been even funnier if they ended up in the wrong bodies besides that, because you could actually play even more on that concept. But no, they just made them girls now, and they literally have an episode where they justify their killing people because of the whole woke mentality, because they were microaggressing them and all this crap. It is just the most redonkulous crap. It's like, Don, what have you done? You were ahead of the game, and now you're so far behind it. Do you realize how funny it would have been had you had Glenda go, no, but I actually wanted to be a woman, and she's not, and she's now a trans woman, and Glenda going, no, I wanted to be a guy.
What they justify it here is they can't decide. They pull in both directions. So
exactly,
we'll just strip him down and see what's under the covers. Lo and behold, it's a doll. What it has is a freaking a Barbie bump, basically a Barbie bump. And it's like, and Chucky's like, see, it's a man. It's like, what? It's like, yes, it has that bump. It's like, no.
Well, and that's the thing I'm saying is, like, they did this so brilliantly, the stuff that we debate all the time now, right? He did it so brilliantly back then, in just those, in the little bits of how it's showing us how silly and stupid it was, but also doing an allegory for the fact that, sometimes people don't feel like they're in the right bodies, through the whole Glenda thing, and having the multiple personalities, the play on the whole psycho bit. I mean, that's a reason why there's a lot of homages in this movie to other classic films like Psycho, because Glenn and Glenda is a play on that whole thing. Sure, it's a play on the name from the Ed Wood film, of course, but at the same time, it's also more so at the mother and the son thing in Psycho. If you look at it, Glenn is Norman and Glenda is mother.
Where Glenn is pulling away. I don't want to commit these murders. I don't want to do these things. And Glenda, the female, is the psycho, is the killer, is the one that's pushing.
And it could even been, they could even went deeper into it as like the whole thing with Psycho, like, that Glenda manifested itself because of Glenn having this urge to kill constantly, but not wanting to, right? Like, that's the whole idea of a split personality, is that the person has created this other persona inside themselves that they've convinced themselves exists, so they don't have to face the fact that they have committed this horrible crime.
Yeah, sort of a dissociative kind
of. Yeah, exactly. And I'm not saying that's every person with a split person. I'm just saying that in this instance, that could have been associated with this. But it's also a great allegory for the whole thing. Yeah.
but in this campy environment, it kind of gets lost in the shuffle of this whole the whole background noise that you have in this entire movie, and they add extra layers into it with the whole I'm trying to not be a murderous villain in terms of Tiffany. We're doing cold turkey, and we're not going cold turkey as soon as we like subdue Redman and Tiffany. We'll just take over their bodies and live our normal lives, not killing anybody. That's coming from her. I like the fact that she's like, okay, we need to get started. She gives him a cup to go masturbate, and he's like, do you want to get me started? And she's like, okay, and she takes it off and pulls it back in, and it's just not enough for Chucky to get going. So he rummaged through these magazines, and one of them is Fangoria. Yes.
See, this movie has some of the best Chucky bits in it. That's the one thing I do enjoy about it.
Yeah, you know what? When it comes to just the Chucky bits, it's
because I love his speech too. Like that's the best part of the movie, probably.
It's like quintessential Brad Dourif kind of Chucky style that you want to see more of, but you don't get enough of in this movie. And yeah, his speech at the end is like, I want to be Chucky. I don't want to be a human. Humans are flawed. They can die. They can grow murderous voodoo killing machine doll that I always wanted to be, or I always was. I just want to.
Well, it only brings that thing to full circle that started with the first film of where Chucky always had to be a child or somebody where it was, in a situation or whatever. At this point, he's finally like, you know what? What is the point? Why would I want to be human? Humans get caught. Yeah. Nobody ever is going to believe that a doll is living. Like it's finally dawned on him after all these years that his best form is this, and he's going to be, even though he does kind of twist things around, and he does kind of address this in a Cult of Chucky, because he ends up becoming the little girl at the end of Curse of Chucky, and he says, accidents happen to little girls. That's kind of the thing too, where he's like, but that goes into a little bit broader thing where Chucky has now figured out how to split his soul up into different dolls and everything, and it gets even more complicated. But
and of course you got Pete.
Oh, I love John Waters. God bless the little people.
And he's like, "Go get it, Mini-Me." He's like, oh,
yeah. I think some of that's added to. Like I know God bless the little people's in the original version. I'm not sure about the Mini-Me line. That might be in the unrated. Yeah, that might be the only other thing.
He films Redman and Tiffany.
I could be wrong.
Here's some sort of a ruckus, and he points the camera upwards, and you see a shadow of Chucky masturbating, and he's like clicking, and then he does this particular double take. It's like, oh, go get it, Mini-Me, and he continues to take pictures of him, and he goes back and forth. And when he goes back to Redman and Tiffany, he's like, God bless the little people. And
I love is that John Waters is just basically playing a John Waters character too. That's the beauty of it.
That's the whole thing. It was written for him because he wanted John Waters to play John Waters-esque character in this film. And it's weird for some people if you don't know who John Waters is. Some of the subtle jokes or some of the subtle things that Don Mancini was going for will go over your head.
It does help to kind of it does help to go into this movie knowing A, just who he is just because, but B, it also, I mean, I've even said this, I think on your show, Greg, when I reviewed the film, it basically is a Chucky movie if John Waters had made it.
Yeah.
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 I mean, really, at the end of the day, so I'm sure that's another reason why Don was insistent that he is in the movie in some way, shape, or form, because this is clearly Don's homage to not just, all the things like Glenn and Glinda and, Psycho and other things that were kind of psychosexually driven, but definitely John Waters too. Yeah.
You know what? I was half expecting to Pink Flamingos kind of be tossed around as a sort of somebody saying Pink Flamingos or somebody mentioning it for some reason. It didn't come up, but it was so half expecting it to come up. By the way, I rewatched this scene twice. Redman does not take his eyes off of Tilly's rack for a second. He's like talking to her. He's lifting his.
It was probably a direction, but yeah, I hear you.
Lifting his head a little bit to see her and like look at her face, and then it's right back down to the rack. And I was like, I'm not sure if it's on purpose, but I'm gonna say yes. It's definitely a choice that they've made. And of course, Tiffany comes in, and she's scared. First of all, she takes Redman in the head with the most ridiculous reward ever. It's like best improved actress or something like that. And she hits him over the head. She scares Jennifer Tilly. And we can do this the easy way or the hard way. And I'm not sure if she means I'm going to hit you with a bottle or I'm going to hit you with this award. Evidently, it's the drugs the ton of drugs that she puts into the champagne. That's what I'm guessing. But of course, that doesn't actually convince Tilly until she comes up and meets Chucky, and Chucky's got a cupful of semen. Is like, what do you want me to do with this? And she gets scared as well. But yeah,
this movie's insane.
It's so insane. She's like, okay, I need to do some work, and she gets this turkey baster. And to me, again, Don Mancini is ahead of the game because or if you ever heard of insemination parties, have you guys ever heard of an insemination party?
No.
If you didn't, and you guys in the chat, if you haven't heard, it's the craziest, wackiest shit ever. You invite a bunch of girls, and you invite a bunch of potential semen donors into a party. They all jerk off, and they pool together the semen, and then they take a turkey baster, an actual turkey baster like this, and they just inseminate the female in question that throws the party, in order for the guys not to have any obligations to the kid, and the girl having multiple different semens in order for the actual thing to happen. So this
never heard of that.
End of the game. I think I think they did a comedy movie with Jason Bateman in it. It is crazy, but I have heard about it before that movie too. Very crazy. So the turkey baster, definitely there. And what Chucky does is he takes advantage of Tiffany being, not like busy. So he's like, I'm gonna take Glinda, make it into Glenn, and we're gonna go and kill that paparazzi. Because he does see him after he masturbates. He does kind of see Pete Peters kind of skulking away.
Which is kind of the seed of this movie, from my understanding, from what Mancini said. Because his whole idea was he thought it was really funny thinking in the idea of having Chucky taking a kid out like Sylvester did his son, trying to get him to catch a rat or whatever. Only in this case, it was Chucky trying to teach his son how to kill.
Yeah.
So,
and that was the inspiration for that, was the Sylvester and Son Looney Tunes cartoons.
I love Paul's like, what the hell did I just walk into? Seed of Chucky, my dear. Seed of Chucky. And you get to, like Tom said, the most controversial bit is him driving Redman's Hummer, and he just pushes Britney, or the fake Britney, off the road. Apparently they used a very famous Britney impersonator for this. I've never heard about her before in my life, but apparently she's famous for it. Like as soon as,
and I think that's what caused most of the problem. Yeah,
as soon as Britney came on the scene around 1997, 1998, she was like, "Oh, this I can impersonate this," because we kind of look the same. And she made it into this movie for a split second. She flips off Chucky, and he's like, "You fucking asshole." and he runs her off the road. And then, of course, we get this. And to me, the Pete Peters or John Waters death, this one is almost as close as you can get to like the older style of how Chucky kills, where it's sort of like here in the background, kind of sitting, not saying anything, and then
accidents
go
happen.
back and forth, and then he disappears, and he's hanging off somewhere, and then he falls and drops in on the would-be victims with a big fucking knife. But in this case, Pete Peters gets scared not just because of Chucky, but because Glenn is there, and he's hideous. So he drops back, and the acid falls on his face, and they take a fucking picture. Take a fucking picture, and this is just glorious because this picture actually follows you through the end of the movie, where Glenn and Glenda kind of get separated into the son and daughter of Tiffany hiding in Jennifer Tilly's body. And that kind of creates that sort of apprehensive mentality of Glenn being like, he watches this picture and he gets scared and he pees himself again. Actually pees himself again. And of course, the day after, both of them wake up fully clothed. It was like, did we do it? Did we not do it? I don't remember. And they just go their separate ways. And Jennifer Tilly's driver is like, he sees Redman walking by, and he's like, Tiffany, I love you. Not Tiffany. Jennifer, I love you. Oh, shit. And he's like, oh no, I'm too late. Or he's like, I want to say it, but she just slept with another guy. I'm not sure I want this, and I still want this. You definitely still want this. And like I said, one of the areas where you kind of see it's led more, the movie is more led by Tiffany rather than Chucky, is her having this whole thing of doing the 12 steps. But the book says 12 steps in 3 days because you have to hurry it up. You can't do the full 12 steps because it takes weeks and weeks and weeks, right? This is, to me, the LA version of getting sober, right? It's it's easy to do the 12 steps. So it's so easy. It just takes a few days. Don't worry about it, right?
Yeah.
It's the easy, clean way of just knocking it back and just being doing it quickly. And she also has a scene later where she calls the hotline after she kills Redman. So she had a lapse. And the guy on the phone is like, it's okay to have a lapse. It's fine. I just had a lapse like 2 days ago. And again, it leads me back to that book where it says 12 steps in 3 days. Of course you had a lapse 2 days ago because you didn't go through it like normal, like all the different steps. And it takes time and effort into doing that. You can ask Gary all about it. Right. Just never mind. I'm gonna hop back into that. Just that is the fact that she's calling that hotline just after he disemboweled Redman all over that dinner table as well. All right, let's move a little bit forward to this, because of course she impregnates Jennifer Tilly with their turkey baster, and they're sitting upstairs, and Chucky's complaining, I don't want to be here for 9 months not doing anything. And she's like, don't worry, this is a voodoo pregnancy. It's an accelerated rate. And he turns to her and is like, how accelerated? Cut to Jennifer Tilly almost nine months pregnant. kind of figuring that she's fat, and she calls her assistant. She's like, I'm fat. It's like, Don't worry, Jennifer. It's fine. And they have that weird call on the phone with like Jennifer on one end, Tiffany on the other end, and Jennifer getting subdued by Chucky to the bed. And the assistant is like, "What the hell is happening over here? Something's up with, there's something actually wrong with Jennifer." And this is, of course, after she got fired already. She gets to the home. Wait, it's a little bit. Yeah. Wait, hold on. Yeah, I got this. So, what Chucky does, he ties up Jennifer, and he's like, "Okay, she's subdued. She's got a great rack. It's time for me to cop a feel." And he turns around, and Tiffany's like, ahem, behind him. Is like, "Baby." It's like, I gotta do what I gotta do, right?
I mean, you got Jennifer Tilly there. Of course, you want to go and grab him.
Of course, you want to grab him. Have you seen Bound? And by the way, Bound is brought up again in a certain contact where she's bound to the bed. It's like it's in my nature to do this.
Yeah.
And of course, the assistant comes in, and we see the point is, before the assistant comes in, we see Glenn kind of being torn apart between Tiffany that says we're going to go cold turkey, we're not going to kill anyone, kind of speaking to sort of Glenn's point of view, not Glinda's, and Chucky going, "No, we're a murderous family. We need to kill people. We don't want to do this cold turkey bit." And he goes all crazy, and he's being crazy enough because once the assistant rolls in, she comes in. Of course, the driver is being subdued because Redman is dead. That's the whole bickering about. It's like Chucky discovers Redman, and he's like, "Oh, you've been doing a bit of killing yourself, right?
Yeah.
You've got your, let's say, skeletons in the closet kind of bit." And they bring in the driver as the assistant comes in. There's the whole bit of Glenda being, let's say, fully formed. I need to literally bring this up. Come on. Yeah, Glenda sort of fully formed and being crazy. And as Glenda is dressed as Tiffany rather than, not really Chucky, because when he's dressed like a boy, he's not really looking like Chucky. He's just a boy. And this is the female version going completely off the chain, crazy, and this is what Tom mentioned before. This is exactly the whole psycho transformation when they kind of find out, oh, it's the woman who killed it, or it's not the woman, but it's the man dressed as a woman who did the killings.
Very psycho.
Very, very psycho. And then we got this scene where Jennifer gives birth. Now, the whole point is not the giving birth, is the sound effects. The sound effects at this point is legitimately disgusting because it doesn't sound like a birth. It sounds like those sound effects that you get for someone's coming. I think Tom has it, and maybe he stepped away, but okay. Tom has it on the side. Yeah, that one. A lot of it. It sounds, to me, it sounded over the top, like over the top, as one boy comes out and Chucky's happy because it's a boy, and then a girl comes out and Tiffany's happy. We've got a boy and a girl. Okay, we can do this. And then we have sort of, Chucky with his Chucky and the speech. Like we mentioned before, Chucky has that speech where I don't want to be a human. I want to stay a doll. I want to be me and keep killing people and not be this human. And once he's like, being true to himself, Tiffany goes like, okay, if you want to be like this, I can't be with you. And he turns into older Chucky. He's like, nobody's leaving me. Nobody.
Yeah.
Right? He goes super crazy, and he just kills he just kills the guy because he doesn't want to be stuck in his body. He just kills this dude, and it basically stops because the cops have joined in. That's the issue. The thing that kind of stops this dead in its tracks is the fact that the babies are there, Jennifer's there, the dude is dead, but the cops are there, and the dolls don't want to be caught because they haven't completely finished the whole process of actually embodying in the new human host. Okay, before we've got one last scene. We're going to do our second game of the night. Let me just set this up. There and there and there. All right, second game of the night. It is called Screen Fighter.
Round 1, fight.
Screen Fighter is where we take two movies, pit them together, and see which one is the best one. If there's no discernible difference between the two, both of them are good, both of them are bad, we fall into our criteria, which is Friday evening, Saturday evening, out with the boys, out with the girls, out with your significant other, two movies in a vacuum. Which one will we pop in? And this rom-com central in a horror movie setting. No, rom-com central movies. All right. Chat participation is most welcome. Cast your votes, ladies and gentlemen. How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days or Enchanted. We'll start with you, Farsine.
Haven't really seen either one of them.
Oh, dude, really?
I'm kind of with Greg. I have never seen Enchanted. I have seen How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, so I guess I'll go with that one.
Yeah, I'd choose that one.
I have seen both. I have a wife, so I've definitely seen both. To be perfectly fair, Enchanted is really sticky, like over the top rom-com. And How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days is better. It's just a little bit better.
Okay.
They're both kind of meh. The Fountain or Lost in Translation, Coppola versus Shyamalan.
I have to go Lost in Translation.
All right. Any reason?
I've seen it. I haven't seen The Fountain.
Same.
Okay. Neither of you, Tom?
I've seen Lost in Translation. I thought it was a little overrated, and I've never seen The Fountain, sadly.
I would pick Lost in Translation. I don't like the older Shyamalan stuff. Ghost or Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire.
Ghost.
Yeah, Ghost. This one's easy.
Easy to me, too. I hate Harry Potter movies. I love the books.
Never got into it.
Justice League War. That's an animated movie. We'll go with I haven't seen it because
I think I have, but that's kind of unfair to put it up against Donnie Brasco.
Yeah, I'd watch Donnie Brasco.
Oh, easy. Donnie Brasco.
Donnie Brasco.
Donnie Brasco all the way.
Why? Star Wars: The Force Awakens versus Donnie Brasco. You definitely pick Donnie Brasco? Really?
It's
I
a better
definitely
movie.
think Donnie
I
Brasco.
still need to watch the South Park episode that came out last night. I
Oh,
heard
it's great.
really good. I've seen bits and pieces. Here we go.
Another Star Wars. Oh, wow.
Star Wars: The Phantom Menace or Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
I got to go with Temple of Doom.
Yeah, me too. Temple of Doom.
Temple of Doom for you guys. I hate the prequels. I really hated the prequels. The only redeeming thing about this particular movie is the last battle, the I can't remember, the Duel of Fates battle, and people don't remember this because it was scrubbed out. Initially, when they put this on, Yoda was a puppet, and it was a bad puppet. It was like so flawed they had to CGI this version of Yoda into it, and it's insane. I hate that movie. I don't hate it, but I don't like it. Seabiscuit or The Cell?
I have to. I guess The Cell, because I've never really seen Seabiscuit. So
Okay, Tom.
Mm,
it's not particularly the best movies.
No, well,
yeah, the cell was
it's,
not the greatest either. Yeah.
it's super random. I typically I would go with Seabiscuit. I don't particularly like horror films, and this Jennifer whatever, J-Lo from the block. I never got into her acting. The best acting she ever did was in Money Train, and she was barely there either. So, Seabiscuit for me. It's a good biopic. It's not the best. I think the other one that they did was a little bit better. Mission Impossible, Rogue Nation, or Erasure.
If I remember right, I think Rogue Nation was one of the better of the MI films. So I'm gonna give Rogue Nation this one. Eraser was a decent Schwarzenegger film, but not one of his better ones. It was kind of on the downward slope.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'll go with you, Tom. I mean, I like Arnie, but I think Rogue Nation was a better movie.
I've technically seen Rogue Nation about 4 or 5 months ago as a preparation for the new release because I was never interested in like the newer Mission Impossibles. I think the Mission Impossible 2 kind of brought me out of it.
Same here.
So bad. I was like,
It's the exact same thing I did, Mephisto. Like
Yeah.
after the second film, I checked out, and I just recently watched all the newer quote unquote anything past three and above. And I watched them all. Anyway, don't matter. Yeah, same thing here. And this is one of the ones that stuck out to me as one of the better of the
this
bunch.
one had one of the best stunts where he was hanging off the El Barrage hotel in Abu Dhabi. It was just the stunts were better. I think the action was a little bit better in Rogue Nation. Didn't quite like the other ones. It was, I mean, so. Zootopia or Digby, the biggest dog in the world? Kind of like new Disney, old Disney, right? Not even sure Digby is Disney. Probably.
I've never seen either of these.
Yeah. I mean,
I hate saying I've never seen Zootopia, but it's true.
Trust me, you haven't lost a thing. Femme Fatale or Mallrats?
I'm not sure I've ever seen Femme Fatale. I guess I'm gonna have to give Kevin this one and do Mallrats.
I can switch over Femme Fatale for something else randomly.
Please get something better than Mallrats, which is tough. Oh hell, easy. MASH.
yeah, I'll go with MASH.
See, that's how it does it. It's so random. You can get really good ones and really obscure ones. I've seen ones from like 1943 or whatever that were not Casablanca. See, Holes with Shia LaBeouf. Oh, it jumped on me. To Kill a Mockingbird or Whiskey Tango Foxtrot.
To Kill a Mockingbird.
I never seen the other one, but yeah, no chance.
Yeah, who can withstand Gregory Peck? I mean, really. 4 Weddings and a Funeral or Chapter.
Cheaper by the Dozen 2?
Cheaper by the Dozen 2. I've only seen Cheaper by the Dozen. Never seen the second one.
The second one is dumb. Both of them are dumb.
They're both bad.
At a funeral.
Yeah, I don't even remember that one hardly, but yeah, I guess.
Akira or Garden State?
I've never seen Garden State, believe it or not.
I have to say
Really?
Akira. Yeah.
You haven't seen
Akira. The audience will kill us if we don't say Akira.
It's just a better movie. I've seen both. It's just a better movie. All right. Dr. Seuss's Halloween.
Okay, you gotta that second one's gotta be flipped out with something else. That's not even a competition there.
Which one?
Halloween is Grinch Night? That's a TV special, first of all. And LA Confidential is a very well regarded film.
Here we go.
Oh, now there's more evenly matched.
With Warren Beatty or L.A. Confidential.
This one's a hard one.
Yeah.
It's a really good movie. It's one of those movies.
I'm going to give the audience the choice on this one on my part. I'm going to give them my vote.
Yeah.
This one's too tough to choose. These are two very
catch up.
prolific films.
Heaven Can't Wait for so long, but it's really good. It's really, really good.
It's one of those rare, really good remakes. Yeah.
The Oscar for this is 78, so I'm not sure. I think it was
He might have or nominated, and then the LA Confidential did win what's his face an Oscar. I know that.
Who won? Is it?
I'm trying to remember the director.
The director won.
I know the picture won Best Picture. I'm trying to remember if it won Best Director too.
Paul says Heaven Can't Wait.
Okay, so we got one for Heaven Can Wait.
Well, some of the crowd here is I don't know if they're young or just not interested in movies enough, which is fine. That's the whole point, is to get you into movies. But yeah, sort of Heaven Can't Wait. Like I said, it's one of those movies where you see once, you kind of appreciate it for what it is. You don't necessarily go for it again. But it's a pretty damn good movie. For me, it's going to be LA Confidential. I think it's recency bias, maybe, but I haven't seen both in a long while. I think it's due to rewatch on both. To be perfectly honest, I would go for LA Confidential.
I don't think you can go wrong with either one personally. So
yeah, I think so too. Right, last one, and we'll wrap things up. Star Trek or Ricochet?
Ricochet is actually a lot better movie than people give it credit for. And Star Trek 09 sucks donkey balls, really, if you think about it. I'm gonna give it to Ricochet too.
Yeah, Ricochet.
One of Denzel's lesser known movies.
It's a bit of a trash fire, sort of a hobbled in together sort of cop movie.
I remember enjoying it.
I wasn't really into it at the time. I watched different movies. I think it's Lithgow, right? As the baddie. I'm not sure.
So.
I think so. I don't remember. Looking at the picture, I'm not sure if it's Lithgow or not. But if it is,
you know what? This movie makes you want to see if it's on Blu-ray now and get it. So there, it reminded me of this.
All right, cool. To me, I would.
And it was one of those movies I never even knew existed until I saw it one night on cable, and it was like Denzel Washington, John Lithgow. All right.
You know what? You know how many movies like that I've seen over the years that are like, oh, it's on cable. I don't have anything to do. It is 9 o'clock in the evening, and I have nothing else to do. Homework is done. I'm talking about the teen years. It's like, yeah, I'll watch this, and I end up watching.
She hijacked
this
some of the
movie and then
credit for
another
when
two
left
after
to her
that.
own devices. She proved to be the single worst executive in film history.
Tom, what was that?
Sorry, I was editing in the background. I'm double working here, guys. I thought I was muted. My bad.
I heard Andre.
I was like, Andre, are you here? Hello.
I am here, but this is why I'm always working on like 2 or 3 different things at the same time.
It's totally fine. I get it. I totally get it. All right, cool. So let's do the last scene of the movie, which is basically the hospital scene. As we kind of see Jennifer Tilly get advice from her lawyer about what is going on. And of course, under the bed, there's Tiffany and Glenn in his Glenn persona. And they wait for Jennifer Tilly to, kind of doze off, and they start to perform. Let's have it. There we go. Tiffany is sort of starting to perform the ritual as Chucky bursts through the door with a fucking axe, and he just smashes her in the face. I can't really show too much of that, but it is what it is. He smashes her in the face like, I told you, nobody leaves me. And it kind of begins sort of a struggle because Jennifer Tilly's on the floor. He's kind of waking up. She's on the floor. Glenn is there torn between the two parents, and Jennifer kind of slides in that axe, like, here you go, do your thing, and
Do you think, cuz?
yeah, do your thing, cuz. And he's like, okay, you hurt my mother, I'm going to kill you now. And he proceeds to hack and slash Chucky to bits. But if you've seen any Chucky movie, you know that it's not the end for Chucky. But of course, like with most of the Chucky movies that I remember, you have sort of a relaxing moment as we can see a few years down the line, as we kind of have an inkling of what's going on with Tiffany being dead, and I have this, yeah, and Jennifer kind of embracing Glenn with Chucky in dismemberment all over the floor. And we cut to a birthday party where Jennifer is talking to her housekeeper, and the housekeeper keeps saying, well, Glenn isn't an issue. However, Glinda creeps her the fuck out. And there's a shot where you can see Glinda outside of the window with sort of a frizzly hair, kind of like Glenn, and kind of like Chucky as well.
Yeah.
And this smile that Jennifer Tilly does, because we still don't know if it's her or not, because she kind of acts like her, but not really. And of course, Glinda kills the fucking housekeeper, and we kind of get we at this point we kind of know, because we get sort of a reveal with her eyes kind of changing. It's like, okay, this is not Jennifer, this is Tiffany and Jennifer's body.
Yeah.
And then we see Glenn, and Glenn is the personification of Glenn's nature to, I don't want to kill anybody. I don't want to be a psychotic murderer like my parents. I want to be free. I want to love everybody. Sort of like he's the personification of the good guy rather than the psychotic murderer. And then he gets a present. And to me, as soon as I saw this, and to be fair, like I said, I've never seen this movie, but I know, and I've seen the other Chucky movies. It was like, okay, this is a box. Before he opens up the box, I was like, okay, this is going to be a good buddy, doll that is maybe new. Because, like I said, before he opened it, I was like, this is the same box,
Yeah.
the same size. We're expecting it. What is going to happen? Are we going to have our sort of subverting our expectations here or not? As he opens up the thing, he sees Chucky's left hand. Now, there's a significant for that, which I wrote here somewhere. Now, I don't have it. It's sort of like harkens back to The Bride of Chucky, where I think Tiffany says he would give his left hand to make sure he lives or something like that. Wait, hold. I've lost it now. Kind of there. I don't want to show the P thing, but he sees the hand and he starts to pee because he's afraid, because that's what Glenn does.
Yeah.
And then the hand kind of in the last moments grabs him. And we're left with some sort of a both jump scare and a cliffhanger, and the movie kind of ends.
Mm-hmm.
And that is about it. That was The Seed of Chucky.
Not my favorite Chucky movie.
Yeah, not your favorite movie.
Yeah.
I'm
Almost
backwards.
fully decorated, Tom. Almost.
Yeah,
fully
well, I usually have more going on, but yeah.
Well,
My
this-
left is my left, my right is my right. Now this is weird.
Yeah. Mirror yourself,
It's a mirror. It's a mirror.
No, but to be perfectly fair, watching this, I didn't expect too much. I didn't expect it to be this amazing, masterpiece of a film. But having watched, and we covered Child's Play last year, I kind of expected an over the top Brad Dourif style that we kind of get glimpses of in this movie, but not all the way through. It was mostly focused on the Seed of Chucky, but not really, because the person who actually moved everything forward was actually Tiffany. Tiffany was the one that was pushing Chucky to do things. Tiffany was the one that was pushing Glenn or Glenda to move to a certain directions where they were going back and forth, back and forth.
Well, that's kind of indicative of a lot of families, though, too, when the mother especially is more of the, leader of the family, however you want to put it.
The
So that
patriarchy.
the matriarchy or whatever here in this case.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, no, I don't have a problem with that. I think it's just fine, and especially considering the type of character that Glenn is. And I never really thought of that before. You said it, that Glenn just kind of wants to be one of the good guys, like a good guy doll, right? Like he really does want to instill what the good guys were all about. And maybe that's one of the missed opportunities of this movie, is him actually catching a glimpse of an actual good guy doll commercial and going, wait a minute, is that what I'm supposed to be? My dad and my mom lied to me all this time. I mean, we kind of have that kind of a twist in the movie, but I think it maybe would have really hit it home, and especially for future stories, because Glenn and Glenda kind of get tossed to the side until the series. And like I said earlier, rewind if you missed it, I kind of said that they kind of get wasted or nerfed and changed in ways I didn't appreciate, and they underused in the new series. And I didn't hate the character. I don't hate this movie. I know it's one of the lesser of the Child's Play films. I mean, I can't argue with that. I definitely can't give it like a recommend, but as a follow up to Bride of Chucky, I think it's all right.
And to me, like I said, it's sort of like I expected something and I got something else. It's not necessarily bad, but to me, it wasn't a personification of what Chucky or what the franchise is supposed to be. Yeah, you had, I don't know, the body count is what, 10, 12, 13 people, which isn't really bad, because if you consider how much body count that you have in Friday the 13th, it's not that high. Especially in the earlier films, and Halloween too. It's not a high body count. It's just how things are done. And here you do have sort of inventive deaths, like the Britney Spears one, the John Waters one. It's kind of inventive, kind of fun, having fun with it rather than just being stabby, killy kind of thing. But it's not what I wanted. I don't know what it is. It's not what I wanted. The whole over the top camp can work in certain areas here, with Chucky as well, where like I said, his parts were the stuff that I kind of liked in this movie, but the over the top sort of meta movie within a movie thing didn't really fit with what I was expecting, and it's kind of a letdown for me. It's kind of a letdown for me. And it's sad to say, but it happens from time to time where
that's fair. And a decade before that
movie, and then you don't really get what you thought you wanted, and
right.
Sort of leaves a sort of a bitter taste in your mouth.
I was just going to say, sorry, the decade before that, getting New Nightmare had done it already. I think they kind of that was where the movie probably suffered the most at the end.
Yeah.
I mean, we'd already kind of seen this stuff before, and it wasn't really breaking any new ground outside of the Glenn and Glenda part, and even that was still kind of old ground if you think about it, considering it's paying a lot of homage to Psycho and other things like that, and Glenn and Glenda, and Glenn or Glenda, I should say. I mean,
yeah.
So yeah, like I totally agree with you. I understand where you're coming from, and I can't like argue with anybody who dislikes the film, even as a super Chucky fan that I consider myself.
I want to say I'm glad we included it, because it kind of fits with what we had throughout the series. maybe in hindsight, because we did Killer Clowns from Outer Space, we did Evil Dead 2, we did this one, and I can't remember the fourth one we did. I honestly can't. I don't remember. I can look. I honestly,
Critters.
after the week I had, yeah, Critters. You were there. God damn it.
Yeah, I was
So,
gonna say, was that part of this month? I couldn't remember.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. This whole the last 3 weeks, you can appreciate it wasn't fun over here on the IRL side. But yeah, to me, what I wanted to get out of this whole Halloween month is going towards the more campy, the more crazy, the more over the top kind of a movie. And to me, what we got from most of them was not over the top camp. I mean, maybe Killer Clowns from Outer Space was a little bit out there, a little bit crazy. I think in hindsight, I would have replaced Evil Dead 2 with Army of Darkness, where it really went over the top. It wasn't campy, or maybe it is, I don't know. But it really went over the top with how crazy Raimi and Campbell can be. But yeah, the sort of that feel went through with ending with Seed of Chucky, where it's real, like really out there. But I have I another appreciation for the whole horror genre, where some of the things I've seen this month were not really horror, were more like a psychological thriller, but it did hit those sort of beats where in places where you're supposed to be apprehensive and scared, maybe not scared all the way, but sort of afraid of what's going to happen next, and you're on your edge of your seats. For some of these movies, not all of them, you're supposed to be there, and that's where the horror kind of comes from, rather than just being completely campy and just offing everybody's heads and all that stuff. But yeah, I did find a newly appreciative kind of take and feel for the horror film genre, especially for this time of year, where
Nice.
we don't celebrate Halloween because we're Jewish.
Yeah.
But we, in terms of how I consume my culture, is mostly Western Christian. You can say Western Christian culture. So I get to celebrate or get to join in with the celebration of, yeah, it's that this time of the month where you're supposed to be off your seat, a little bit scared, a little bit apprehensive, and just embrace it a little bit. Just go into the supernatural, unknown areas of your mind and just embrace it a little bit.
Yes.
So I wanted to ask Fanzines, you said you cover horror films and you
Hmm.
generally like that genre. Am I
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
What kind of draws you into that kind of a genre? What do you find? What turns you on when you watch a horror film?
I like the fact that with horror movies, you can literally tell anything. You can make a comedy out of a horror movie. You can make a drama out of a horror movie. You can make just a bloodbath out of a horror movie. You can get legitimately scared. You can do all kinds of different things with the horror genre, and that's why it leads me towards it. Specifically, I like older, like 80s and 90s horror and 70s horror, stuff like that. It's just something about that and the way those movies were put together. It just draws me to them, and I just have a fascination and a love for those type of movies. It's just so many different things can be done with them.
If I would have asked you to give me a recommendation, I know it's off the cuff, to give me a recommendation of a solid, good, scary horror films from the 70s, what would you say?
Well, of course, Halloween, of
Okay.
course, and wasn't The Exorcist in the 70s? I believe. Yes,
Yes.
yes, The Exorcist, Halloween.
73.
That would be your definitive one, because to me, The Exorcist, it would be number one horror film
Yeah.
of the 70s. There are more. I'm into sci-fi, so it might have interchanged with Alien, to be fair.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, because Alien is it's the horror of the unknown rather than seeing the monster. It's a lot for me to do, especially when I watch this for the very first time, is the fear of the unknown element in this, where you're not only get hunted down by this killer that is running around in your ship, you also don't see it for the most part in the entire movie, and that kind of puts you as in terms of as an audience member kind of afraid of what's out there, because you've seen the face hugger and you've seen an inkling of a young kind of a xenomorph, but you don't actually see what a fully grown one until almost the very very end, when it comes to like going out to the escape ship and that sort of thing. But to me, when you say horror film, 70s, it's
Which is funny because Alien is basically Halloween in space.
Right. It
Just
is.
I think even Ridley Scott had said that there was some kind of like.
But Halloween for me was
Inspiration for that.
never a thing. Well, I mean, I knew it and I've seen it.
Right. For you
What-
over there, I can understand.
I
Yeah.
wouldn't gravitate specifically for that, just because I'm coming from a more sci-fi love for sci-fi and all that stuff. Because I've seen Alien after I've seen Star Wars, for instance. I've seen Exorcist after I've seen Star Wars. It came a little bit later in life when I a bit grew up in it. You know, there was a time that I actually did like, and I think I mentioned this before, loved like 80s campy, sort of like the critters style, ghoulie style, gremlin, little rubber monster style movies that were like, oh, this is scary, but it's also, I want to see what they'll do next kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, but after I kind of went after 14, I was like, not for me. Not for me. But you know, there's always highlights. I went out and, especially for that reason, because of sci-fi, I went out and watched Event Horizon in the theater, in a very good theater, I might add, and it was a mind-blowing experience. I absolutely love that movie, and we covered it on the show, and we kind of got into it, and I found things that I didn't know about this movie, and I love it even more. Although it has a lot of bad CGI moments, it's so it works. It actually does work as a movie to scare you, because you're already in space and you're already afraid of the dark and the vacuum of space. But also you have this element which is supernatural and super crazy as well. Do you like Event Horizon, right?
Yeah, I like Event Horizon. It's a good movie.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we're kind of done with tonight's show. Went a little bit shorter, but it's fine. Sort of like half planned. Next week, I think it's the menu. No, next week is even more special film that is very close to my heart, because in November we decided to have a food-based month. So we're gonna have next week. We're gonna cover up Chef with Jon Favreau. Jon Favreau's Chef, a movie that I absolutely adore, and kind of hate what Jon Favreau became after this movie, actually. But if you haven't seen Chef, please, dear audience, please go and watch it and come back to us next week. And all throughout the month, we're going to have food-based movies. And also, there's a very, very special appearance at the end of the month by Mrs. Mef. She's going to join me for a very special movie that we both like that I will not disclose at the moment. So please, fan scenes, I will include your channel in the description down below. I will definitely already included Tom, Midnight's Edge After Dark, Twitter account, all that good stuff. And of course, Mead Radio as well. Don't forget that for your music, delectable music stuff. You're doing something special on Mead Radio for Halloween?
Oh, I'm sure I will, since all month is usually Halloween themed. I'm sure I'll try to do something. Although I stream on regular Tuesday, I don't know if I'll actually do any. Yeah, I'll probably do something on Halloween, but yeah, it's hard to say. I'm sure I'll figure something out. Between now and then, I'm sure I'll do another one too, but all depends on if I can get this work done.
Awesome. Anyway, go subscribe to these guys, and of course, come subscribe to me, and I'll have some more in depth, because I've done very shallow reviews throughout the month of October. I still have a few more left. 31 days, 31 horror films, each and every single day, a review. It's tough going, but it kind of spurs me on to do more in-depth stuff, which is coming. I've already written 3 rather in-depth stuff that I'm excited to go out and actually do some edits, because it's going to be a lot of fun, especially the Big Lebowski one that I'm planning. Has some fun bits in it. Anyway, like, share, most importantly, share this live stream out, and subscribe if you want to, if we entertained you. And we'll see you next week. Go watch Chef. And yeah. Oh, one more thing. And it's very important for these days, because everybody's talking World War III. Relax. I hope it's not going to be there, because hope is a good thing. Maybe even the best of things. And no good thing ever dies. Have a good night. You're still here? It's over. Go home.